there has been a recent focus on diversity as a result of the Black Lives Matter movement that has sparked in the past couple of weeks. And so everyone now is looking at the BAME community and how they're treated and how they're represented. For anyone that doesn't know, BAME means Black, Asian, minority, ethnic, and it is essentially just a term that people use to describe anyone who is not white. So people for a long time have had an issue with it. And because we're having so many more articles now, saying, oh, BAME community this and BAME community that, it has brought up the conversation again of people not being comfortable with the term BAME. So I wanted to ask you guys, do you like the term BAME? And if you don't like it, what would you rather we use instead?
I'm gonna go first, ladies. I'm not comfortable with it. I'm not really comfortable with the term. I think it's just too broad. I think it's way too big. Black, Asian, minority, ethnic, that's millions of people. Let's talk about the UK in general. That is millions of people. And it really makes it out like we're one homogenous group, like we're all kind of the same. So when you say a BAME issue, oh, okay, but it doesn't affect us all the same. We're millions of different people, various races, various cultures, various languages, and putting us all together means that when something comes up or an issue, how are you dealing with any of it? Because you're trying to make it out like you're one person. We're not.
I agree with Sophie. To be honest, as I've grown up, as I've matured and wisened up,
like fine wine,
let them know, girl. I'm actually wondering if I have a problem with the word Black, not just BAME itself. I'm contemplating, the word Black, where it stemmed from. Do I even want to keep using that, let alone BAME? I think the word BAME, I've always been awkward to say the word BAME. Like, I've never said it with vim. Like, I've always said it and just been, so I swear that I've always been like, people from the BAME background. That's everyone. So if we deep it, I don't want to use the word Black anymore. I want to start saying African-Caribbean. I want to start saying melanated people, if I'm just being honest with you. So yeah, BAME for me, you ain't gonna catch me using that term, boy.
I completely understand people being uncomfortable with the term BAME. I will say though that I do think it is necessary to have a word that describes everyone who isn't white, but I only think it's necessary to use that word when you are describing everyone who isn't white, because sometimes you're going to be talking about an issue that's affecting the Black community. So Black with a capital B. And like Sophie said, there's going to be issues that, like, for example, if there was a British person who has East Asian heritage, I'm not going to understand their experience. So say their community and name their culture. We can be specific. There's nothing wrong with being specific. Like, when we group us all together, it excludes our nuances, and then that in turn excludes our individualism. It excludes our identity, and that's very frustrating because even us on this call don't have the same experiences. We don't have the same heritage, and we're all Black. Well, you know what I mean? So, but you can't just throw us in a whole, we're all BAME. Like, it doesn't make sense. I use the term people of colour, and I use that quite comfortably. I refer to myself as a woman of colour, and that kind of just rolls off the tongue. But I don't think that it should be the term that we use to replace BAME with, because I really think that we need to think about terminology that still associates us with whiteness, if that makes sense. So it's kind of like, white is the default, white is the norm. White people are people, but everyone else is a person of colour. And for example, if I was to tell you a story and I was to say there was a woman walking down the street and she reached into her handbag, everyone in their mind is going to envision a white woman because white is allowed to be the default. And we've trained that to be in our mind, where if we look at everyone who is BAME, I have an issue as well with the word minority ethnic or ethnic minority, whichever way you want to flip it. And we spoke about language last week and how important it is. I think that needs to just be scrapped as a whole, because BAME people make up the global majority. The biggest demographic in the world in terms of popularity is everyone that you consider to be BAME. So the term minority ethnic, not only does it insinuate feelings of powerlessness, it also is just inaccurate as well as a term. I think that when we have words like BAME, it also kind of adds a hierarchy into BAME people. So it's like you're saying black, Asian, and everyone else. That's what it sounds like to me. And even though everyone who's a person of color gets othered, you're even othering people of color in the others category, which is ridiculous to me. And Linda literally just said something, and I got this from a Janelle Monáe song when she said highly melanated. So I like the term highly melanated people. I think that's what we should replace BAME with. It's accurate, it describes us, it doesn't have a hierarchy, and it doesn't associate us with being opposite to white. So it's like, we are highly melanated people. I put 1 vote in for that.
Votes. I honestly just think you should refer to yourself with whatever term you feel comfortable with. Because personally for me, like, I did use the word BAME, and I use it in the beginning to kind of group us all together, and then I had to take like a look at why I was using that word, and then I was kind of like, yeah, I don't like it. And it wasn't even just because of, it actually wasn't even because of my own experience. It was because I felt so bad for the other racial groups that they had just been lumped, and that it was like, okay, we care about white issues. If we're saying there's racism, then we're focusing on black issues, but then there's other races that have other issues. And of course, I'm black, so I mainly only focus on my issues, but I want to acknowledge that other racial groups are having other issues, and me just saying BAME is just like me just like putting a lid on them. And I just really did not like it. And I know like people use it to group everyone together, but don't just list it out so you can be specific. As Luanda said, just be specific. Do you know what I mean? But I also know that there are people who are uncomfortable by identifying somebody by their race or by their color. Because me personally, when somebody asks, like, I'll say I'm black, but I also just identify from where I come from. So I always say, oh, I'm Caribbean. I'm an island girl. But like, you always hear me say things like that. But I remember working in retail, and we were on the shop floor, and my manager, who was a white lady from Essex, and she was like, oh, can you go, we were in a department store. So she was like, oh, go to that concession over there, because that lady over there, she has a pair of shoes that I like. Can you ask her if she has my size? Blah, blah, blah. I said, what girl? Because all 3 of the workers were standing together. So I was like, which one? She said, oh, the one that's in all black. I said, they're all in all black. Like, which one are you talking about? She's like, the one that has her hair in one. I was like, 2 of them have their hair in one. Who are you talking about? She's like, she has a bit of a puff. I said, the black girl. She said, why don't you just say the black girl? She was the only black one there. I didn't know who you were on about. And she was just like, oh, I just feel so uncomfortable saying the word black. And I was like, I get it, but then I don't feel uncomfortable saying the word white, so I also don't get it. And that's just what
Do you know what? I agree with you so much, and I think that's the flip side of this whole BAME discussion, because I did some research, and I think it was in a BBC article, and they were talking about where the word black came from and the word BAME came from. It was really interesting, because they were saying before the 1950s, the word black, in terms of a reference to people, was seen as like really derogatory. And it wasn't until the civil rights in America that people in the UK started to identify as black, because it became a political statement then to try and say people who were oppressed or were facing disadvantages because of their skin color. And that's when we owned the term black. And they said BAME came in like the 80s and 90s, because that's when there was an influx of people coming again from black origin, from Asian origin. They were like, in terms of the census, they were like, how do we make, what's the word? How do we show that there are people now from other communities? How do we let them know that there are other communities now, and it's not just white people? So it seems like it came from a good place, because they wanted to put on the census, we want to recognize that there are people of black minority, of Asian minority. But I think now the term is being used to deal with some of the uncomfortable things that we have with race, in terms of people just saying the word black or white or Asian. Because in America, everybody is very comfortable with saying African American. Everyone, white, because that's their name. But here in the UK, saying the word black still seems very political to people, where the majority of people are saying, if you want to call me black, that's fine, because that's what I am.
Here's the thing, Sophie, right? So I want to try and hit all three of you right now. What I think is done in that census is taking the time to find out which countries and communities people are from. It's just laziness grouping a group of people. Let's make it easy for us. Let's not take the time to find out exactly what their specific nuances are. Let's just put a word together that will make it easy for us to categorize. So they should have actually taken the time to list it. Listen, these countries and these for example, if you're from Nigeria, you're Nigerian. These words exist for a reason. Let's not go into these countries' names though, because they were divided out when Africa was. But anyways, and also, Anissa, I have a very similar story to you, and it does to, I think, white people and them feeling comfortable referring to people as black or melanated or whatever. So I used to work in this office, and this lovely girl, really lovely girl, I still speak to her now. She is white, lived in Switzerland for a long time, worked for the So we had gone to the gym. I introduced her to my friend, shout out Leon, black guy. So, right? She comes to me one day. She's like, "Oh, Linda, I was speaking to your friend at the gym." I was like, "Oh, which one, babe?" She's like, "Oh, that guy." I was like, "Babe, which guy? I know quite a few guys at the gym." She was like, the African American one." I said, "Darling, we are in the UK. You can say." I'm like, my girl called him African American.
It's a more comfortable term. That's my point. People are much more comfortable to say African American.
That's not realistic though, because what? Like, I have been held to African American stereotypes my whole life, and I'm British Caribbean, so like make sense. Do you know what I mean? It's really frustrating that people think that I think that this stems from people even thinking saying the word black is racist, or acknowledging someone's race is racist. Yeah. Because like you guys, I was in a scenario when a girl, I was with a girl and someone was like, "Oh, we want to know if you're single." She says, "Who wants to know?" It's like, "Oh, me," and then they name the other person. And she was like, "Oh, is that the I said, "The black one." The black one. He's the black one. Like, come on. But I understand 100%, like I said earlier, when it's necessary to be specific, then be specific. But I also do think we do need a term for everyone who isn't white, because there are experiences that every person who is not a white person is going to experience. And it's not realistic to say, if we were talking about the coronavirus disproportionately affecting communities of colour, it's not realistic for us to be saying the coronavirus disproportionately affects Nigerian and Jamaican descendant and blah, 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 blah. You need to be able to have a word that includes everyone, but that isn't like as problematic as BAME. Yeah, that's why I suggested highly melanated people. But we do. I agree, Luanda.
Go on, girl.
No, go ahead.
I guess for me, I think even having BAME does a disservice to white people as well, because it clumps all white people together. And you have white British, you have Irish, you have Romanian British, all these different people who are treated differently. Like someone with an Irish accent or Romanian British are going to be treated differently. If you're from a different socioeconomic class, you might be classed as white, but your experience is also going to be very different from someone who's white middle class. So it doesn't even help them either, or talk about their specific nuances in terms of being white. And from something that you said earlier that I really wanted to say, I just hate the term person of color, because when you think of coloring something in, the white is the default. Now you've been colored.
That's why I said we shouldn't use it to replace it. Yeah.
For me, I don't like that, because I'm just going to be like, we're all a color. The whole point of you saying that we're highly melanated is because we have more melanin than white people. So we all have a color. We just have more of it. So when you say person of color, I'm just like, we're all colored. So I'm not different. You're colored. You're just a different color. Just call me black. That's what I'm trying to say. Call me black. Blackity black. I'm black.
Black. But I understand that as well, though, because like I understand Linda's issue with even the word black, because again, it's then still relating to whiteness. It's like the opposite of white, you know? Because we don't, like I said, with doing the scenario, like if I was to talk about people, the first thing that you're going to imagine is a white person until I tell you otherwise, because we're all trained to see white culture and see whiteness and see white people as the default version. Like I don't have a problem with being called black or being called a woman of color, but if we're moving forward, we do need to address the problematic issues within those terms. And I understand, like when you're talking about the history, like, okay, it used to be derogatory, it used to be this, it used to be that. So we have to think about the power behind it. Because if you want to call like an Asian person Asian, you're going to call them Asian. You're not going to call them whatever their skin color looks like to you. And especially because black is political, because we all know black people with white skin. They have white skin, but they're black people. So we need to work on it. Again, in terms of the replacement for BAME, I still suggest highly melanated people. But for now,
A work in
now,
progress.
things like women.
He's on it.
It's a work in progress. We all
It's
just
a
gotta
word
work
in
together.
progress. But that's the thing.
Throw
Language
your
does.
suggestions in
That's
the
the thing.
suggestion box, and we'll review it over the
We
weekend.
will review. The thing is, language develops over years, over centuries.
Yeah,
100%. This conversation is so juicy and important, and I think for me as well, the reason why I'm like, I don't. Firstly, would you believe, right? This is how you know I wasn't even feeling BAME. I couldn't even clock what the M and the E stood for.
Yes. I didn't know until a couple of years ago, Linda. Honestly, I'm just like, I mean, I know it means all people of colour, but I'm not sure what it's like.
Don't make me laugh.
Yeah.
I was like, black, Asian, black. I was like black, Asian, or black and minority. I couldn't figure it out. But you know, the word black is problematic because if you think about it, you know, it's black magic, and the black cat isn't good luck, and you know, it's you know, but it's just all the things that are associated with being black.
Yeah,
now,
yeah.
I will still refer to myself as black now and again.
Yeah,
I'm trying to go over to like, melanated people. What's the word melanated? It just sounds so beautiful. Linda, would you ever say that you were brown? Would you ever say that you were brown? My boyfriend says that I'm chocolate.
But I think that's what it comes down to, like, because in this call already, in this discussion, everyone has said that they want to be referred to by something different, and I think it's very much like pronouns. Ask somebody how they want to be referred to. Like, once we're past the job description, like, because I understand why it has to say BAME on the job description, because it very clearly, we understand who you're trying to give the opportunity to. So there needs to be something, but past that point, ask people what they want to be referred to, because they will let you know. So yeah, and like, also I just want to say, I don't feel like let's get stuck on the words too much, because let's talk about the injustices still, about the fact that there aren't BAME people in senior levels, because we want to focus on the word, but it's like, actually let's focus on the problems that they're dealing with.
Yeah, but listen, I think we can focus on both at the same time because they're interlinked. Like exactly what Linda was just saying about everything to do with whiteness is related to purity and goodness. And like, if you're getting married, you're pure, so you're wearing a white dress. If you're going to a funeral, you're sad, so you're wearing black. Like everything is connected. So we can talk about both at the same time, I feel.